My people, welcome to another great episode from You and I Talk Show with your favorite host, Louise Uwachu. Today, we are going to speak poetry, words in beautiful. And we have with us a great artist, a great speaker, Kevan, SCRUFFMOUTH, camera.
You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. You and I, you and I, you and I talk. Louise Uwachu Imana and Uwachu Productions.
The wrath of the math. Formulate creation from the empty set. Add a population capable of exponential multiplication. Subtract morality and distort reality. Decimate any attempt for procreation. In the event that individual variable expressions cannot be simplified, a sequence of rebellion will be brought into the equation. On each and every such occasion, divide and rule, divide and rule. These tactics are not taught in formal school. However, the wrath of the math has proven to be quite an effective tool, despite those scholars who claim its intentions are cruel. In actuality, they have made an error because they have forgotten to subtract morality in order to facilitate terror. If the formula has been entered correctly, the population will die faster than it can multiply, numbers will be negated before they enumerate, and souls will be bought and sold according to the principles of free market capitalization. Factor into the equation manifest destination, and the solution will be nothing less than war. I was a prime soldier sent on a fact-finding operation with my crew of composite numbers. The odds were against us. They said we will never elevate the lowest common denomination. We were the victims of division, and in a metaphorical cataclysm, my words became my prison. Quite the dilemma when your executioner only has 3 minutes to listen and the remainder to judge your fate. After 523 years, the entire contents of my mind confined to a 182nd slave ship, 180-day trip across the Atlantic, 180 lashes of the master's whip. They say I'm free, but now my words are held in captivity. 180-degree turn from the bull whips and I was sent to find facts, but I only found broken, blood-stained backs. I was studying the figures, but I only counted dead brothers and sisters on my fingers. What a botheration. But that still does not stop the accusation of promoting violence in my rhyme, while pockets are being lined from the glorification of crime, and they sure ain't mine. It doesn't add up. So I split my brain in half and realized that the warpath is paved with the wrath of the math. And that's a long history of division as nation after nation suffer the effects of numerical devastation. Blood, sweat, and tears is equal to the sum of all fears. And the threat is too real when the source of hate is tax and terror-free zoned in the country of poorest poverty. Love is too expensive to be sold on our market, so we eat hatred instead. And our consumption of hate will result in an overproduction of hate, and hate will have to be genetically modified to reach those pockets of love that globalization missed. Because every free-thinking individual is a lost prophet, and every free-thinking individual is a prophet lost, and every individual prophecy is a conscious conspiracy to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, and we will get free or die. Because the numbers don't lie. My name is Kevan Anthony Cameron. I'm also known as SCRUFFMOUTH. I'm the co-editor of an anthology of contemporary African-Canadian poetry called The Great Black North, together with Valerie Mason-John. This is the school edition, and we're looking to get this into some schools. It's appropriate for any grades 7 till 12. I'm going to perform a short piece from this anthology. Louise, you had mentioned the speaking of poetry, but for me, the most appropriate verb is spitting poetry. So here now are 7 laws of spit. Number 1, Spit not in the wind. Number 2, be not too proud to spit your truth out loud. Number 3, as a man thinketh, so too he spitteth. Number 4, spit not lest ye be spit upon. Number 5, the best spitter is a better listener. Number 6, actions spit harder than words. Number 7, a word spat is a bond intact.
My people, you're in for a great, inspiring night. Stay tuned. We're here with Kevan SCRUFFMOUth. Kevan.
And I talk show with Louise Uachu. We love you, the authors, the musicians, the comedians, the entrepreneurs, and all other talented and inspiring people. Please contact info@uachu.com to be a guest on the show.
My people, welcome back to the show. Kevan, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome
it's
so much.
Such a great pleasure to have you in person. You're such a powerful poetry and guy and speaker. And you have this great book. Let's start by this great project of yours. How long did it take you to gather all the people that were involved? I saw so many contributors, like how many? And then how long was the whole process?
Well, in 2011, Valerie Mason-John had approached me with the idea to pursue an anthology of, Canadian poets of African descent. And she had come here from Britain, so she was investigating that. I was involved with the spoken word scene, so because that generation has been really powerful and active with poetry slams, and even with dub poetry and hip hop culture being translated into the spoken word as well. I was kind of very willing to kind of share my networks and work on this. So we, after kind of securing a contract with Frontenac House Poetry to publish the anthology, we spent the next couple of years working out the call for submissions, how to make it as national and inclusive as possible, how to word the call for submissions. We sat down with George Elliott Clark and Karina Vernon. George is now currently the Toronto Poet Laureate. So the result is that we were able to get about 90 poets from across Canada working in even different disciplines, because for poets of African descent, it's very common to use the spoken word or the oral tradition in your creative performance. So some spoken word artists aren't necessarily concerned with having their work in print or in a publication. However, we were able to get many notable spoken word artists in the book, people that you might recognize, people such as Ian Ketiku. We also have L. Jones, who's the Halifax Poet Laureate. And now we see that it's more commonly accepted that spoken word is commonly accepted as poetry. Artists who work as spoken word artists are regarded as writers as well as performers. And I think this anthology went a long way to help kind of expose people to the range of poetry that's out there, as well as give some emerging and intermediate poets, a little bit of publication alongside some of the established.
Yeah. And you're a great poet. You're a champion, actually. You were the champion of Vancouver in poetry at some point?
In 2008 at the Vancouver Poetry Slam, I did win the Grand Poetry Slam title. And like I had mentioned, poetry slams have gone a long way into creating kind of a popularity. So with young people at the high school ages and beyond, poetry slams are very popular. And I think as a spoken word artist, I definitely used the poetry slams to kind of springboard my career into working as more of a performance artist and working in different forms, utilizing media arts and using, video poetry and things like that. In addition to those slam stages, because now a lot of spoken word artists will go and feature at poetry slams, as well as facilitate workshops at schools, and they kind of work as a role as a facilitator. So this art form, spoken word, has really taken off. And the anthology, once again, the biggest thing for us as editors was that we were able to create two sections in the anthology. One was called Page and one was called Stage. So again, you know, having that recognition of the spoken word as an art form, as a literary art form as well, was super important.
Yeah, because now they're going to be remembered. It's printed and it's going to go to so many more audiences than if they would have just performed it, right?
Exactly, and it creates opportunities for spoken word artists to go to literary festivals and book fairs and perform and present, because this is an engaging art form, and it is, you know, very much performance-based.
Yeah.
However, I don't think those artists should be excluded from certain opportunities just because they might not have as many words in print as someone who solely works on the page.
Yeah. So how did you start being a spoken word artist, being a poet? Is this like a talent that you discovered? How did it all come together?
I think in terms of the discovery of talent, let's start there. I would have to credit my family, my mom in particular, who would always take my brother and as well as other community members. She would have a Saturday school where she would teach us Jamaican folklore and poetry. And so we were exposed to the works of people like Miss Lou at an early age. And my dad, he was always into reggae music, so I had a good ear for the classics. And I think from those two influences, my own kind of chosen culture was hip hop. But hip hop culture is connected to those older influences as well. So for me, that's kind of, I was always, I think, I was always entertaining my own creativity, whether it was writing lyrics, or, you know, when I was younger, my friends, we would have a little hip-hop group. But when it was, I would say more recently, it was probably when I was in university that I started to write for myself, because you're writing so much for your courses. I always wanted to write some stuff for myself. So that's probably the first poetry that I kind of started writing recently, and that was very much in the form of lyrics. And then maybe 11 years ago, I was walking up Commercial Drive. I had just got a Jamaican patty, and I saw a poetry slam going on at Café du Soleil, and I said, okay, this seems cool. I went to go check it out. I saw a few notable poets, people like C.R. Avery and Shane Coizon on stage. I knew it was something that I could do. I knew it was something that I could be into, so I would kind of go every other Monday whenever I had an opportunity, just to kind of sit and check out the slam poets at the Poetry Slam. And in the meantime, in between time, I was always writing my own thing, waiting for the chance to perform.
Very nice. Let's take a short break and then come back and keep talking about it.
You and I Talk Show with Louise Uachu. We love you, the authors, the musicians, the comedians, the entrepreneurs, and all other talented and inspiring people. Please contact info@uachu.com to be a guest on the show.
My people, we're still here with Kevan, such a great speaker, and then you have that voice too. So you go into a commercial, into a cafe, and you start performing, and people like you, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can keep doing this.
Well, fortunately, that's basically how my experience went. The first time I slammed, it was a Black History Month theme, and I was thinking to myself, oh, that's right up my alley. I had just graduated from university with a double minor in history and philosophy. So I wrote what I thought was the definitive Black History Month poem. I performed it, and you know, even though I almost forgot some of the poem, I was received well. I got a few tens, which is always encouraging. Even though at poetry slams we like to say, the point is not the points, the point is poetry, right? But of course it was good to kind of, you know, be received well. And I was invited to some other events that really kind of got my career as a spoken word artist started.
Mm-hmm. So aren't rappers kind of doing spoken word? I mean, it looks like rap is spoken word, but with a beat on it.
That's exactly what it is. And that's why even if you're going to take the acronym for rap that we like to use is rhythm and poetry.
Oh, That's better. I never knew what rap means, but now that's it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
rhythm and
Yeah.
poetry.
We like to think spoken word is the umbrella.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different art forms that live under that umbrella.
Wow. And so you also a writer and an actor. I don't know, I had something in my Okay. So I was gonna say you also an actor. I've seen you in a few things. How did the acting come about? I've seen you with a big afro one time in something.
Oh yeah, the acting came around at the same time that I was exploring some creative avenues. So when I was finished university and going into my second year playing professional soccer, I got injured that year, and I had a lot of time when I was doing rehab to kind of think about, well, how can I stay healthy? Why did I get injured? What should I do? If I'm not playing soccer next year, what am I going to do for a living? And that's when I first started looking at opportunities in film, TV, and commercials. You know, I did a soccer commercial here, and then shortly after my first debut spoken word performance, I was invited to perform or to kind of feature in a film. So I think at that time I realized that the creative avenues were actually a road that I could walk down and make a living. And so I think those two things I started to take seriously. So whether I'm working in film and TV or if I'm on stage as a spoken word artist, for me that's still coming from SCRUFFMOUTH. So as a performer, as a writer, as a poet, that's SCRUFFMOUTH. Right? That's the superhero that came around because he had to, you know, recognize how to use his voice to get some things off his chest.
You definitely have a great voice. And so where does the nickname or the name that you've given yourself, SCRUFFMOUTH, come from? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's like, what is scruff? That's kind of rough, right? Or what does it mean to you?
Oh yes. So for me, it kind of does have multiple meanings. But when I mentioned when I was younger, I was in a hip hop group. Specifically, it was called Triple Threat. And my two friends, Curtis and Andre, we all had nicknames, right? Because, you know, we're rappers or singers. So my nickname was SCRUFFMOUTH because my brother used to always tease me because I always used to like, even though I only had a little bit of facial hair, I always used to like to, you know, wear my facial hair. I never used to like to cut it, but it always looked scruffy or patchy or whatever. So my brother would always like have some kind of comment for me, like, oh, that's chicken scratch or peach fuzz or scruff mouth, right? But scruff mouth kind of stuck. So when I was, you know, when we were playing around with our little hip hop groups, I would be scruff mouth. That would be my nickname. And then back when I was in university and writing again, and now I'm thinking about taking the words from my page to the stage. Well, Kevan Cameron is he was already a guy. He was the soccer player. He was, you know, the scholar. So I said, well, if I'm going to take these lyrics to the stage, I need a stage name. So SCRUFFMOUTH came back.
And how do people receive it? Are they expecting, you know, when you hear that, are they expecting somebody who's spicy, or how do people usually receive it?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that people are usually ready to hear a spoken word artist because that's the context that I'm generally performing in or being introduced in. But having said that, I identify as a dub poet, right? And not too many people have context for dub poetry, but dub poetry is basically spoken word in the Jamaican culture that came out of the dub and the instrumentals and the B-sides with the equipment in the 70s. So now engineers and composers could play around with the lyrics and the vocals. They could invite their friends who were poets to spit poems on these instrumentals, on these compositions, and kind of dub poetry came out of that. So whether or not you're working with a rhythm or not, there might be rhythm in the words themselves that you use. And that's kind of linked in addition to a political and social consciousness, right? The message is the music in reggae. So all those things go into dub poetry, which is a founding influence in Canada because of people like Lillian Allen. Lillian Allen was one of the first dub poets in Canada, and she created a dub poets collective and had one of the first dub poetry festivals, and was really, because of that, responsible for establishing spoken word as an art practice in Canada. So those are some of the links. So for me, I think I'm kind of received maybe as someone who's almost aligned with the hip hop culture, almost aligned with the dub poets and the reggae culture, but also aligned with the spoken word and the slam poetry that's coming up. So I think I'm just kind of, that guy that has something to say.
Yeah, all right, my people. We've been going over the time because it's so interesting. So we're going to take a short break and come back and still talk about it.
You and I Talk Show with Louise Uachu. We love you, the authors, the musicians, the comedians, the entrepreneurs, and all other talented and inspiring people. Please contact info@uachu.com to be a guest on the show.
All right, my people, we're here talking about poetry and speaking. And so, Kevan, you have such a great voice. Is that a natural thing, or did you have to train? And do you realize how great your voice is?
Thank you for saying that. Maybe I don't. Maybe I take my voice for granted. But I think that growing up with my mom, who was a teacher, she was an educator, I think she would have made sure that if I was speaking, I would be speaking clearly and intelligently. So I think I try and still do that when I perform. But yeah, thanks for the compliment.
So, being of Jamaican origin and then trying to connect to Africa, I know you've traveled to Africa, you've had projects there. Can you tell people what was your experience and what is like the future vision of how you connect?
Mm-hmm. Well, my experiences with my African identity, again, start with my family, start at home. My family are Maroons, so we are Africans in Jamaica. So when I went to Africa for the first time, I went to Kenya. I had the opportunity to coach soccer in the upcountry in the Kiambu district, and we selected a team called Githunguri United. So it was a kind of a short, quick trip, only a month, but we were able to get a lot done. In the country in Kenya, the upcountry, it looks the same as the country in Jamaica, right? The hills. So there's also a similar mentality amongst the people. So it felt very familiar. And the second time I went to Africa, it was with St. Albert Smith and the SFU Ghana Field School in 2012. And Ghana and Jamaica are like twin brothers. So again, going to Ghana was like, going home to a place that I'd never been to in my lifetime. So I mean, that felt very reaffirming as an artist. I was able to kind of receive some inspiration, get some work done. So the continuing effort is also through the collective, Black Dot Roots and Culture Collective, which was an organization founded to educate people, create original forms of artistic expression, and celebrate the culture and heritage of peoples of African descent. So that's something that I'm always engaged in, whether I'm here in Vancouver or traveling abroad. Right now, we're trying to travel with a few Canadian poets of African descent to Jamaica to the Poetry in Motion Festival in February. And as well, because I am a soccer professional, I always like to, kind of create sustainable soccer initiatives. So I might have an excess of soccer gear and equipment. I'll take that with me the next time I go to Jamaica, just as I did when I went to Kenya. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the ways that we look to
Very nice.
Enhance the community.
How do people feel about you and what you do in Jamaica? And how did people feel about you in Africa, being Jamaican, and traveling there and the whole experience? How do they receive you and how do they feel about what you do?
Yeah, great question. Fascinating, because in Kenya, I was received as, you know, oh, here, this is Coach Kevan. Oh, he's a brown man, right? In Kenya, brown man kind of means, oh, you're probably have some mixed parentage. You know, you might have some mixed parentage. But after I was in Kenya for a couple weeks, I think it's because my skin darkened up because of the sun. They're like, oh, Coach Kevan, we see that you are a black man. So that was.
So you were not black enough in Kenya.
Yeah, not until the sun got me. Right, I went from brown to black in Kenya. In Ghana, it was fascinating because in Ghana, this is 2012.
Yeah.
My hair was, you know, kind of like your hair, kind of a short afro. But in Ghana, people would call me Rastaman, or they would call me Black American. Right? So it was like either Rastaman or Black American. And that's kind of, this is how I was received because even though I wasn't rocking dreadlocks, I think for them it was obvious that I was either Jamaican or a Rastaman or, you know, or maybe a Black American. So that was also interesting. But Jamaica was also good because, you know, just playing soccer with the people there. Again, I was called Brown Man, but it was interesting that no one called me Rastaman in Jamaica, but in Ghana, everyone called me Rastaman. So in Jamaica, everyone knows I'm from foreign, but they know I'm Jamaican, but they know I'm not born in Jamaica. So
And what about the accent? You know, I love the Jamaican accent. Do you bring it on when you go to Jamaica, or, you know, like?
It depends on the conversation, right? Are you talking to a Rastaman? Are you at the market? Are you just trying to get by? If you're trying to maybe, let's say, pay the local fare and you're in a cab, then, yeah, I mean, might bust some patois, you know, yo, cabby, may I have to go a place up there, so, right? But if you're resigned to the fact that you're going to be identified no matter what, then it's just based on the conversation. Because if you're in Kingston, that's really a dynamic, almost dancehall-based dialect, really. So unless you're keeping up with the culture.
Yeah.
But if you're in the country, that's more of an old school country patois that you might know from your parents. So it really depends, and that goes for outside of Jamaica too. It depends on the conversation. But when I'm writing as an artist, as a dub poet, I love writing in patois. I think it's the most dynamic and versatile language to deliver poetry in.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's been so short. We're coming to the end. We're done. I mean, thank you so much for being here. We just have maybe a second for you to say one last word. If you want people to retain something from what you do and the importance of it, what would that be? And then we're done.
My name is SCRUFFMOUTH Scribe, and for me, knowledge is power. And with great power comes great responsibility. Therefore, knowledge is a responsibility. So use your knowledge wisely.
All right, my people. Know and be wise.